Welcome to a spectacular episode where we uncover the ultimate visual attacks that broke the internet. We know BTS for their phenomenal music, but what happens when the stage lights hit just right, a shirt accidentally lifts, and armies worldwide collectively forget how to breathe? Today, we rank the top 7 BTS members with the hottest six-pack that made ARMY melt instantly. Who hides the most devastating core behind their hoodies? Can your heart actually handle the heat? Let's find out. Number 7. J-Hope, the god of core control, Sergeant Hoseok's lethal weapon. Who would have thought that the brightest sunshine of BTS, our very own hope and resident mood maker, was secretly hiding a literal weapon of mass destruction underneath those famously oversized Balenciaga hoodies, baggy cargo pants, and colorful bucket hats? Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we are kicking off this jaw-dropping, temperature-raising countdown with none other than Jung Hoseok, a man whose jaw-dropping physique wasn't built in a commercial gym just for aesthetic mirror selfies, but forged in the fiery, grueling depths of underground street dance. Let's take a deep dive into the historical timeline of Hobi's midsection, shall we? Back in the early rebellious days of BTS around 2013, during the raw and aggressive No More Dream and We Are Bulletproof Part 2 eras, armies were honestly blessed, truly wonderfully fed by the unbridled energy of a rookie hip-hop group eager to prove their worth to the world, where accidental shirt lifts, aggressive choreography, and intentional body flashes were simply part of the daily menu. Hobi, armed with his lethal popping and locking background as the legendary underground dancer Smile Hoya from Gwangju, already possessed a core made of solid, impenetrable steel. You see, to flawlessly execute those mind-bending, bone-breaking isolations, to literally freeze your entire body mid-air and snap back to the beat like a glitch in the Matrix, you require an abdominal foundation that is insanely strong and functionally perfect. His six-pack is not just for show, it is the very engine room of his legendary dance moves, a functional anatomical masterpiece that allows him to defy gravity and manipulate momentum with terrifying precision. But then, a dark age descended upon us. We entered a long, agonizing period that veteran armies vividly and painfully remember as the Great Hobi Drought. For years, J-Hope systematically locked away his glorious midsection, swiping right on high-fashion layering and leaving us absolutely parched while teasing us mercilessly in the process. Who could ever forget the infamous internet-breaking V-Live promise? He boldly and confidently declared to the entire world that if BTS reached 10 million followers on the platform, he would finally bless us with an official abs reveal. The fandom mobilized like a well-oiled military machine. The numbers skyrocketed at unprecedented speeds. And when the highly anticipated moment of truth finally arrived, what did our beloved Hobi do? He sat there on camera, giggled with that infectious, heart-melting laugh of his, executed the cutest, most devastatingly adorable Aegyo apology known to mankind, and left us absolutely high and dry. We were surviving on absolute breadcrumbs, people, just tiny, microscopic, accidental flashes of skin when he went a little too hard during the fierce mic drop dance breaks, or the legendary gravity-defying Boy Meets Evil solo choreography, where every leap and twist sent fans into a forensic frenzy, analyzing pixelated screenshots just to confirm that the six-pack was indeed still alive and thriving. Even his own members, especially the chaotic trio of Namjoon, Jin, and Taeyoung, knew exactly how thirsty and desperate the fandom was, frequently exposing Hobi's notorious habit of casually walking around completely shirtless in their private dorms, painting vivid, tantalizing pictures in our minds that we couldn't actually see with our own eyes. The frustration was palpable, but the anticipation, it was astronomical, building up like a pressure cooker over the years. Fast forward to the monumental history-making Hopi-Palooza era at Lollapalooza in Chicago in 2022. The grunge rock star aesthetic, the sheer, unadulterated charisma, the way his dark, oversized clothes clung to his sweat-drenched frame as he commanded a crowd of over 100,000 people. He was practically edging us, giving us the most microscopic, fleeting glimpses of a toned stomach that proved the hidden masterpiece was still very much intact under the designer fabric. But the true plot twist of this saga, the singular era that fundamentally altered brain chemistry across the globe and caused a collective international meltdown, happened immediately after his military service. Enter Sergeant Jung Hoseok. When Hobie enlisted, we all knew he would come back stronger, more disciplined, and matured, but absolutely nobody, not a single soul, prepared us for the sheer, unapologetic bulk-up of his post-military era. He candidly confessed that he gained healthy weight during his service, but clearly every single pound of that weight went straight into building a chiseled Greek god physique that could rival classical statues. We began seeing tantalizing clips of him hitting the gym with the resident buff boys of BTS, Namjoon with his mountain-like shoulders, Taehyung with his broadening frame, and Jungkook, the undisputed muscle bunny. Hobie humbly claimed that his wrists were too thin and delicate to safely lift heavy weights like the giant Machne line. So what strategic genius move did he pull instead? He hyper-focused entirely on his core. Yes, you heard that right. The man dedicated his precious gym hours solely to carving, sculpting, and perfecting his midsection with relentless ab exercises. And the payoff was nothing short of apocalyptic for our sanity. When he burst back onto the scene, promoting his recent explosive solo projects and tearing up the floor in the Hope on the Street documentary, the great drought officially ended. He blessed us with tight, unforgiving white tops that left nothing to the imagination, smirking knowingly and dangerously into the camera because he knew exactly what kind of chaos he was inflicting upon us. In those recent high-definition dance practice videos, every single deep breath he took, every intricate breath dance isolation made those deeply carved military-grade abs ripple and flex in a way that made millions of armies collectively scream, pause the video, and forget how to inhale. It wasn't just a cute, shy idol accidentally showing some skin anymore. This was a mature, fiercely confident artist who had fully embraced his sexy era and was wielding his physicality like a lethal weapon. The way gravity finally took its natural course, lifting his shirt to reveal the deeply defined, shadow-casting ridges of his rock-hard six-pack, broke the internet into a million tiny, irreparable pieces. It is a physique born of decades of grueling, bone-aching practice, thousands of hours sweating out his soul in a dimly lit studio until the mirrors fogged up, and a relentless, unwavering dedication to perfecting his craft. J-Hope's abs aren't just for shallow visual gratification. They are a breathtaking, tangible representation of his blood, sweat, and tears, his ironclad discipline, and his awe-inspiring journey from an ambitious, hungry underground dancer in the streets of Gwangju to a bona fide global icon dominating the world stage. Every ridge and muscle fiber tells a story of perseverance, of a man who pushes his body to the absolute limit just to give his fans the greatest performance of their lives. So, as you find yourself staring respectfully at those glorious high-definition pictures and slow-motion gifs of Hobie's legendary midsection, remember that you are looking at the very core of BTS's performance powerhouse, the gravitational center of their flawless choreography. Are you still breathing? Is your heart rate still within a safe, medically acceptable range? Because honestly, after surviving the devastating evolution of Jung Hoseok's six-pack, from the elusive breadcrumbs of the past to the glorious high-definition feast of the present, it's a genuine miracle that any of us are still standing upright. If number 7 on our list is already hitting this hard, radiating this much heat, and making us severely question our sanity and cardiovascular health, can you even begin to comprehend? Number 6. RM, the intellectual titan, a sculpted masterpiece of philosophy and pure muscle. Who on earth gave Kim Namjoon the permission to undergo such a devastatingly lethal physical transformation while simultaneously possessing an IQ of 148, thereby creating the most dangerous combination of brains and brawn that the human race has ever witnessed? Ladies and gentlemen, buckle up your seatbelts and hold on to your sanity, because at number 6, we're dissecting the awe-inspiring, internet-breaking metamorphosis of the one and only leader of BTS, RM, a man whose physical evolution is just as profound, poetic, and earth-shattering as the philosophical lyrics he writes in his dimly lit studio at 3 in the morning. If we hit the rewind button and travel back to the gritty, eyeliner-heavy debut days of 2013, we remember a very different Namjoon, a tall, lanky, incredibly fierce underground rapper who hid his youthful insecurities behind dark sunglasses, towering hair, and oversized hip-hop gear. A leader who carried the literal and metaphorical weight of a struggling rookie group on his relatively slender shoulders. Back then, the mere concept of RM being the resident gym rat of the group would have sounded like an absolute fever dream, a hilarious joke among armies who affectionately dubbed him the God of Destruction for his legendary, endearing clumsiness, constantly snapping sunglasses in half, breaking set props, and tripping over thin air. But oh, how the tables have violently turned, how the narrative has drastically shifted, because the God of Destruction eventually realized that the only thing he needed to destroy was the gym equipment, our collective peace of mind, and the entire internet. The monumental shift, the absolute cultural reset that forever altered the trajectory of the BTS fandom, began during the agonizingly long pandemic lockdown, a period where Namjoon decided to channel his restless energy, his deep introspection, and his relentless drive for self-improvement into lifting obnoxiously heavy pieces of iron in the legendary, heavily guarded HYBE gym. It started as a whisper, a terrifying rumor floating around the fandom when the other members started dropping subtle, panic-inducing hints during V-Live broadcasts, with Jin dramatically complaining that Namjoon was getting too big, too intimidating, and that he was terrified of being accidentally crushed if the leader ever hugged him too tightly. We heard legendary tales of his grueling workout routines, rumors of endless pull-ups, intense CrossFit-style conditioning, and relentless heavy lifting that transformed his once slender frame into a veritable mountain of muscle, causing his chest to expand and his core to tighten into an impenetrable shield. We didn't quite believe the magnitude of these claims until the physical evidence started slapping us directly in the face, beginning with those completely unhinged, sweat-drenched, desperately blurry gym mirror selfies that Namjoon would casually drop on his Instagram stories, usually completely unannounced, at the most ungodly hours of the night, sending millions of fans into a synchronized state of cardiac arrest. But the true revelation, the absolute pinnacle of RM's physical supremacy that officially cemented his status on this lethal countdown, was majestically unveiled during the Permission to Dance on Stage stadium concerts, an era that will forever be etched in the annals of ARMY history as the ultimate thirst trap. When Namjoon stepped onto that massive stage in Los Angeles and Las Vegas, the world stopped spinning. He was clad in a dangerously sheer, semi-translucent, scandalously thin black mesh shirt that clung to his heavily modified frame for dear life, paired with a tailored suit jacket that could barely contain the sheer mass of his broad shoulders and expanding chest. As he performed with that commanding, aggressive alpha energy, sweat glistening under the blinding stadium lights, the thin fabric of his shirt became an open window to a meticulously sculpted, rock-hard six-pack that was built entirely different from the typical, slender idol physique. This was a thick, powerful, powerlifter-style core, a midsection constructed with the density of titanium, radiating a raw, undeniable masculinity that left crowds of 60,000 people screaming until their lungs gave out. We vividly remember the sheer hysteria during the fake love performances, where the intricate bondage-inspired harnesses were strapped tightly across his torso, accentuating a waist so incredibly snatched and a core so terrifyingly solid that it completely defied the laws of human anatomy, making us seriously question if he was secretly carved from marble by Michelangelo himself. Every single time he executed those sharp, powerful hip thrusts, the deeply etched lines of his obliques, and the undeniable definition of his upper abs played a cruel, intoxicating game of peekaboo with the screaming audience. And let's not even get started on the psychological warfare he waged during his solo Indigo and Right Place Wrong Person eras, where he perfectly balanced the aesthetic of a soft, nature-loving, art museum-hopping poet with the intimidating aura of a man who could easily deadlift a small car, creating a dizzying juxtaposition that had armies spiraling into a deep, inescapable crisis. His six-pack is the ultimate physical manifestation of his relentless discipline, a mirror reflecting the exact same unwavering dedication, intense focus, and agonizing perfectionism that he applies to his award-winning discography and his role as the anchor of the world's biggest music group. Even now, during his honorable military service, playing the saxophone in the 15th Division Military Band in that impeccably fitted red uniform, recent glimpses and heavily circulated photos show a Namjoon who has somehow grown even wider, even more solid, his core practically bursting through the military-issued fabric, proving that not even the rigid constraints of the South Korean army can halt the unstoppable, terrifying expansion of his physique. It is genuinely mind-boggling to comprehend how a man who spends his free time tenderly watering bonsai trees, reading complex philosophical literature, and quietly admiring abstract paintings in empty museums can simultaneously harbor a midsection so aggressively chiseled, so undeniably lethal, that it casually dominates global trending topics every single time a stray button pops open or a rogue gust of wind decides to do God's work. His body is a testament to his unbreakable willpower, a visual representation of a man who refuses to be boxed into a single category, proving that you can absolutely be a deeply sensitive, intellectual artist while simultaneously building a physique that rivals professional athletes. A man who carries the unimaginable pressure of leading a global phenomenon and grounding 7 distinct personalities, all while maintaining a core so incredibly strong that it could probably withstand a natural disaster. The sheer duality of Kim Namjoon, the intellectual giant with the body of a Greek god, is a dangerous, intoxicating paradox that continues to captivate, terrify, and utterly enchant the fandom on a daily basis, reminding us that the genius leader of BTS is just as deadly physically as he is mentally. So, as you desperately try to catch your breath, hydrate, and process the sheer magnitude of RM's transformative journey from a lanky underground rapper to a hulking philosophical titan with a core made of solid granite, you absolutely have to ask yourself a very serious question. If the sophisticated, brainy leader of BTS is casually wrecking our lives at number 6 with this level of devastating physical intensity. Number 5. Jimin, the ethereal swan of seduction, a core forged in the fires of absolute perfection. How can we possibly talk about the history of BTS, the evolution of their breathtaking visual artistry, and the very concept of a stage-shattering six-pack without immediately bowing down to the original, undeniable king of the midsection reveal, the man who single-handedly carried the monumental burden of visual shock during their grueling rookie days? Welcome to number 5, where we are completely unraveling the mesmerizing, gravity-defying, and dangerously seductive physique of Park Jimin, the ethereal swan of BTS, whose core is an absolute masterclass in the terrifying intersection of delicate contemporary art and raw, unadulterated primal power. If we rewind the clocks all the way back to the sweaty, highly charged summer of 2013, when BTS was just a group of hungry, fiercely determined underdogs fighting for their lives in the cutthroat K-pop industry, it was Jimin who was entrusted with the ultimate secret weapon in their debut choreography for No More Dream. A weapon so lethal, so unprecedented that it permanently rewired the brain chemistry of every single person who witnessed it. We all remember that exact heart-stopping moment. The aggressive beat drops, the members form a tightly knit line, and suddenly this cheeky, chubby-cheeked teenager from Busan confidently steps forward, fiercely lifts his oversized black shirt with a rebellious smirk, and unleashes a deeply carved, incredibly defined set of washboard abs that instantly sent shockwaves through the entire industry and firmly put BTS on the global map. Back then, Jimin's six-pack was the stuff of legends, a heavily scrutinized, highly publicized marvel of human anatomy that became an essential, unavoidable highlight of every single live performance. But what many casual onlookers tragically failed to realize is that this breathtaking physique was not just a superficial visual gimmick designed to farm cheap screams from teenage fans. No, Jimin's legendary midsection is a deeply functional, hyper-tuned engine of pure kinetic energy, meticulously built upon a lifelong foundation of rigorous contemporary dance, modern ballet, and elite martial arts training. As a top student at the prestigious Busan High School of Arts, Jimin spent years mastering the intricate, agonizing mechanics of bodily control, learning that to execute those breathtaking, gravity-defying leaps, to spin with the dizzying velocity of a top, and to effortlessly suspend himself mid-air as if time itself had completely stopped, he needed a core of absolute, impenetrable steel. His abs are the literal anchor of his artistry, the central pillar that supports every single fluid, mesmerizing body roll in blood, sweat, and tears, every razor-sharp, explosive isolation in mic drop, and every hauntingly beautiful feather-light pirouette in Black Swan. But the journey of Jimin's physique is also a deeply emotional, profoundly reflective tale of a young artist battling the suffocating, relentless demons of extreme perfectionism, navigating through years of brutal, starvation-level diets and agonizingly punishing workout regimes just to maintain an impossible standard of beauty that the industry aggressively demanded of him. Armies have watched, often with bated breath and heavy, aching hearts, as Jimin pushed his physical vessel to the absolute breaking point, collapsing off stage in exhaustion, heavily reliant on oxygen tanks and muscle tape, all driven by a desperate, heartbreaking desire to never disappoint the fans who looked up to him with such starry-eyed adoration. However, as the years progressed and BTS ascended to unprecedented, godlike heights of global superstardom, we witnessed a glorious, incredibly healing metamorphosis. Jimin slowly but surely began to shed those toxic expectations, embracing a much healthier, more sustainable approach to his body, and transforming his physique from a source of agonizing pressure into a magnificent, unapologetic canvas of profound profound self-expression and mature, lethal confidence. This awe-inspiring evolution reached an absolute fever-pitch crescendo during his critically acclaimed Face solo era, particularly in the visually arresting, fiercely aggressive music video for Set Me Free Part 2, where he completely shattered every conceivable boundary of art and sensuality, standing defiantly amidst a sea of dancers, wearing nothing but a sleek, unbuttoned leather jacket that boldly exposed a torso intricately painted with profound German philosophical poetry. Jimin gave us a high-definition, soul-snatching view of a core that was no longer just a collection of bulky muscles, but a sleek, sinewy, incredibly toned masterpiece of mature artistic rebellion. The sheer, unadulterated power he radiated as his deeply defined abs flexed and contorted with every aggressive choir-backed beat drop was an absolute cultural reset, proving that his midsection had evolved from the flashy, attention-grabbing gimmick of his teenage years into a deeply sophisticated, dangerously alluring instrument of high art that left millions of fans collectively grasping for their inhalers. And who could possibly erase the agonizingly beautiful memories of the Love Yourself and Speak Yourself world tours, where the legendary ethereal serendipity solo stage became a nightly exercise in collective fandom torture? Every single time he executed that famous floor-sweeping contemporary body wave, the thin, delicate fabric of his silk shirts would inevitably, almost miraculously, ride up just enough to expose the golden, sweat-drenched ridges of his lower stomach, teasing the audience with agonizingly brief, tantalizing glimpses of a core so perfectly sculpted it genuinely looked like it had been kissed by the gods of Mount Olympus. His duality is truly terrifying. One moment he is the soft, giggling, irresistibly squishy mochi whose eye smile could melt a glacier, and in the very next breath, a single deliberate flick of his wrist, a dangerously dark gaze into the camera, and an accidental flash of his rock-hard obliques transforms him into an absolute demon of the stage, a mesmerizing siren who completely paralyzes you, effortlessly commanding the attention of 70,000 screaming fans in a sold-out stadium with just the subtle, tantalizing flex of his abdominal muscles. Even during his honorable service in the military, stationed in a demanding artillery unit, we can only imagine the kind of devastating, highly disciplined physical conditioning he has undergone, knowing full well that his natural elite athleticism and his unwavering, borderline obsessive dedication to perfection will only forge that legendary core into something even more terrifyingly powerful and visually lethal upon his highly anticipated return. Jimin's six-pack is ultimately a breathtaking testament to his agonizing sacrifices, his breathtaking resilience, and his unparalleled once-in-a-generation talent, a physical manifestation of an artist who literally pours his blood, his sweat, and his very soul into every single microscopic movement on that stage, refusing to give anything less than absolute heart-stopping perfection. Number 4. Suga, the dangerously hidden masterpiece, a feline core forged in hellfire. Who on earth could have ever predicted in their wildest, most unhinged fever dreams that the resident sleepy grandpa of BTS, the man who famously and iconically declared to the entire world that his ultimate goal was to be reincarnated as a completely motionless rock, would one day aggressively kick down the doors of Chapter 2 and unleash a physical transformation so incredibly lethal that it permanently altered the DNA of the entire fandom? Welcome to number 4, where we are desperately trying to survive the sheer, unadulterated whiplash brought upon us by none other than Min Yoongi, August D himself, a musical genius whose journey from a slender, studio-bound producer to an absolute feral powerhouse is a tale of agonizing pain, triumphant rehabilitation, and unprecedented visual warfare. If we journey back to the early, heavily eyeliner days of BTS, Yoongi was practically synonymous with physical fragility. He was the slender, incredibly pale, sharp-tongued rapper who spent 90% of his waking hours locked away in the dimly lit confines of the Genius Lab, surviving on iced Americanos and the sheer, burning passion to create chart-topping masterpieces. For years, the concept of a muscular, chiseled Min Yoongi was nothing more than an inside joke, a hilarious, unimaginable paradox, primarily because we all knew the heartbreaking, deeply guarded secret he carried, a devastating shoulder injury sustained from a tragic motorcycle accident during his pre-debut days as a struggling delivery boy, an injury that left him in chronic, agonizing pain for the better part of a decade. We watched, often completely oblivious to his silent suffering, as he heavily modified choreographies, winced through intense dance breaks, and strategically hid his physical limitations behind oversized flannels and layered grunge aesthetics, his core slender and untouched by the grueling demands of the heavy lifting done by the rest of the group. But then, in the unprecedented, world-halting year of 2020, a monumental shift occurred. Yoongi finally underwent a complex, highly invasive surgery to repair his torn shoulder labrum, disappearing from the public eye and entering a grueling, agonizingly painful period of physical rehabilitation that would fundamentally rewrite the trajectory of his entire physical existence. To fully recover, to regain the mobility he had lost for years, the doctors gave him an absolute non-negotiable ultimatum. He had to build muscle, he had to undergo intense physical therapy, and he had to construct a core and upper body strong enough to permanently support his fragile joints. And oh, sweet heavens, did he ever take that medical advice to heart. Slowly but surely, the fandom began to notice terrifying, undeniable changes. The oversized hoodies started looking a little tighter around the chest, his posture grew noticeably broader, and whispers of Yoongi frequently visiting the infamous Hybe gym started circulating like wildfire, sending a collective shiver of anticipation down the spines of millions. But absolutely nothing, not a single warning sign or prophetic vision could have adequately prepared us for the absolute server-crashing, civilization-ending, apocalyptic event that was Chapter 2 Min Yoongi. The man suddenly discovered the sheer, devastating power of long, luscious black hair, tailored Saint Laurent suits, and most terrifyingly of all, a newfound, unapologetic confidence in his own god-tier physique. Do you all remember exactly where you were on that fateful day when Yoongi casually, without a single shred of mercy or prior warning, dropped those infamous grainy, shirtless Instagram photos from his private photo shoot? The internet literally came to a screeching, catastrophic halt. Servers crashed, timelines burst into flames, and armies worldwide collectively lost their minds as we were suddenly confronted by the undeniable high-definition reality of his broad chest, his deeply toned, sinewy arms, and the tantalizing, deeply shadowed lines of a chiseled midsection that proved the motionless rock had been secretly forging a body of absolute iron. But the true, absolute pinnacle of Yoongi's physical supremacy, the moment he completely transcended his former self and became a literal god of the stage, happened during his historic, record-breaking August D D-Day solo world tour. This was not the quiet, reserved Yoongi we once knew. This was a feral, untamed, absolute beast who commanded the stage with a terrifying, raw, and deeply intoxicating masculine energy that left sold-out arenas screaming in sheer, unadulterated terror and absolute ecstasy. Performing night after night in soaring temperatures, strumming his acoustic guitar with a microphone in hand, the sheer intensity of his performance naturally led to the most devastating wardrobe malfunctions in BTS history. As he violently threw his head back, drenched in sweat, aggressively spitting out the fiery, rage-filled lyrics of Daechwita and Haegum, the buttons of his custom silk shirts simply surrendered, giving way to the sheer force of his movements and exposing a beautifully sculpted, deeply defined core that glinted under the harsh stadium lights. Every time he raised his arms, every time he dramatically slammed his hands down on the piano keys, the deep, muscular ridges of his stomach tightened and flexed, creating an agonizingly perfect visual of a man who had conquered his physical demons and emerged as an absolute titan. His six-pack is not the product of vanity. It is the breathtaking, tangible result of a brutal battle against physical pain, a deeply inspiring testament to his relentless willpower, and a magnificent display of his journey to heal, rebuild, and protect his own body so he could continue sharing his soul-crushing music with the world. Seeing Yoongi, the man who couldn't even lift his arm properly without wincing, now possessing a core so terrifyingly strong, so incredibly defined, and wielding it with such unapologetic, dangerous sensuality, is a character arc so profoundly epic it deserves its own cinematic universe. He single-handedly redefined the concept of the Yoongi Marry Me phenomenon, transforming it from a cute, endearing fandom meme into a desperate, frantic plea for survival, because quite frankly, witnessing this level of raw, feral, and aggressively toned energy in person is enough to completely short-circuit the human nervous system. Even now, as he fulfills his mandatory service, completely shielded from the public eye, the deeply scarred, beautifully sculpted physique he left us with continues to haunt our waking thoughts, a permanent, undeniable reminder of the absolute lethality of a fully realized Min Yoongi. So, as you desperately try to fan the flames of your own ruined sanity, furiously staring at those unforgettable shirtless Instagram photos and wondering how the quietest member of BTS managed to inflict such unprecedented, catastrophic visual damage at number 4, you seriously need to ask yourself a very terrifying question. If the dangerously hidden, reborn masterpiece of August D has left you this thoroughly devastated and gasping for air. Number 3. V. The unpredictable master of seduction. A secret weapon forged in elite fire. Who in their right mind could have ever anticipated that the deeply mysterious, soulful-eyed secret weapon of BTS, the man who was initially hidden from the public eye before debut, would eventually evolve into a living, breathing, unapologetic embodiment of lethal, heart-stopping physical perfection? Welcome to number 3, where we are absolutely diving headfirst into the terrifying, mesmerizing, and utterly destructive physical evolution of Kim Tae-young, a man whose transition from a slender, eccentric art enthusiast into a hulking, military-grade titan has caused more collective panic attacks and viral internet meltdowns than we can mathematically quantify. Let us rewind the tape to the very beginning, to the era when Tae-young was affectionately known as the Blank Tae, a lanky, incredibly skinny teenager from Daegu who swam in oversized Gucci sweaters and possessed a deeply charming, boyish innocence. Back in those early days, his visual appeal was entirely rooted in his ethereal, almost otherworldly facial features and his impossibly deep, soulful baritone voice. His physique was slender, tailored for the high-fashion, androgynous aesthetic that made him a global fashion icon, rather than the heavily muscled, intimidatingly broad silhouette we are forced to grapple with today. For years, Tae-young vehemently rejected the gym life, proudly declaring his undying love for hamburgers, cola, and leisurely strolls through quiet art museums, actively avoiding the heavy weights that his fellow members were beginning to obsess over. He was the undisputed king of the hidden core, using his impeccable high-end fashion sense, the flowing silk shirts, the perfectly tailored Celine suits, and those iconic sweeping coats to completely mask whatever was happening underneath, leaving fans to rely purely on their wildest, most unhinged imaginations. But the absolute betrayal, the magnificent, earth-shattering turning point that completely obliterated our sanity and permanently altered the fabric of the ARMY universe began during the agonizingly beautiful blood, sweat, and tears era and slowly escalated until it reached a terrifying, unstoppable fever pitch during Chapter 2. It started with microscopic, agonizingly brief teases, a strategically unbuttoned collar here, a sheer, dangerously translucent fabric there, and the legendary, highly illegal Singularity solo stages where his liquid, mesmerizing dance moves hinted at a core that was slowly but surely solidifying into solid rock. We also cannot forget the iconic, heavily analyzed Run BTS episodes, particularly the chaotic water park and swimming pool challenges, where wet, clinging shirts gave the fandom their very first tantalizingly clear glimpses of a torso that was secretly, quietly being sculpted into a veritable masterpiece. However, absolutely nothing, and I mean literally nothing, could have prepared the global fandom for the unhinged, apocalyptic chaos of Tae-young's infamous Instagram era. Do you all remember the exact traumatizing moment he decided to casually upload that blurry black and white shirtless mirror selfie, or the devastating clips of him casually strolling around Mexico shirtless during the filming of Ginny's Kitchen? The internet literally fractured into a million unrecoverable pieces. Twitter servers caught fire, international news outlets scrambled to cover the hysteria, and millions of fans completely forgot how to perform basic human functions as we were suddenly violently confronted with the undeniable high-definition reality of his incredibly broad, impossibly wide chest and the deeply etched, heavily shadowed lines of a meticulously carved six-pack that had seemingly materialized out of thin air. The man who once scoffed at the very concept of lifting weights was now casually dropping breadcrumbs of his grueling gym sessions, showing off heavily veined, impossibly thick arms and a midsection that completely defied his soft, romantic, jazz-loving persona. He became an absolute menace, a chaotic mastermind who knew exactly how much power he held over our fragile nervous systems, strategically posting and then instantly deleting these lethal visual attacks, leaving us desperately scrambling for screenshots and questioning our own sanity. His solo layover era only intensified this psychological warfare, presenting a deeply intoxicating mix of vulnerable, soulful R&B aesthetics heavily contrasted with a dangerously toned physique that peeked through soft knitwear and unbuttoned cardigans, proving that his core was just as artistically refined as his music. And just when we thought our fragile hearts had finally stabilized, just when we believed we had reached the absolute ceiling of Kim Tae-young's physical supremacy, the man decided to enlist in the notoriously brutal, highly elite special duty team for his mandatory military service, completely destroying whatever was left of our mental fortitude. The SDT is a specialized anti-terrorism unit, a division that demands a level of physical conditioning, grueling endurance, and raw, brute strength that is practically unfathomable to the average human being. We were warned that he was bulking up. We were told he was aggressively gaining muscle mass to survive the grueling tactical training, but the sheer, monstrous scale of his transformation is something that defies all logical comprehension. When those rare, highly circulated military photos finally dropped, showing Tae-young clad in the intimidating all-black SDT tactical combat gear, possessing a physique so unbelievably massive, a chest so unbelievably broad, and a core so terrifyingly thick that he genuinely looked like an elite movie star action hero, the global fandom went into an unprecedented, irreversible state of shock. He proudly announced that he had bulked up to a staggering 86 kilograms of pure, unadulterated combat-ready muscle, completely shedding any remaining traces of his slender, boyish past. This is no longer the soft, eccentric artist who solely paints and listens to classical vinyls. This is an absolute formidable titan, a man who carries the immense weight of elite tactical gear, heavy firearms, and grueling physical combat training, necessitating a core that is literally built like a titanium vault. Every single glimpse we get of him now, whether it's a heavily armored patrol, a promotional military video, or a fleeting gym update alongside his fellow elite soldiers, reveals a midsection that has been brutally forged in the punishing, unrelenting fires of elite military conditioning, transforming his once hidden masterpiece into a terrifyingly lethal weapon of mass destruction. His six-pack is no longer just an aesthetic marvel designed for high-fashion photo shoots or magazine covers. It's a deeply functional, hyper-resilient engine of brute strength, an undeniable, awe-inspiring testament to his shocking adaptability, his ironclad resilience, and his sheer, terrifying willpower to conquer one of the most physically demanding military branches in South Korea. The duality of Kim Tae-young has reached a dizzying, entirely unmanageable new zenith. He is a man who can effortlessly serenade you with the softest, most romantic jazz melodies under a moonlit sky, pose flawlessly as the global ambassador for Cartier with aristocratic elegance, and in the very same breath possess a physique so violently muscular, so aggressively chiseled that he could casually bench press a small vehicle without breaking a single sweat. Watching his physical evolution from the slender, mysterious hidden member hiding behind oversized luxury brands to the hulking, elite SDT soldier who casually breaks the internet with a single heavily muscled flex of his abdomen is an absolute, heart-stopping privilege that has left millions of fans in a permanent state of awe and utter devastation. So, as you desperately attempt to gather the shattered remnants of your ruined soul, furiously fanning yourself down, chugging a glass of ice water, and trying to mentally process the sheer, suffocating, and thoroughly lethal magnitude of these elite military-grade physique at number 3, you must brace yourself for an impact that will absolutely shatter reality as we know it. Because if the enigmatic, jazz-loving titan of BTS has completely decimated your ability to breathe and completely rewired your brain chemistry with his heavily armed tactical metamorphosis, what kind of unfathomable, world-ending, and absolutely legendary physical dominance is quietly waiting to completely obliterate your entire existence? Number 2. Jin, the worldwide handsome, broad-shouldered god, a hidden core of pure granite. Who in the entire universe could have ever predicted that the undisputed, eternally confident, worldwide handsome, the man whose face card has never declined in the history of mankind, and whose shoulders are so astronomically broad they practically possess their own gravitational pull, was secretly harboring a midsection so incredibly sculpted, so ruthlessly defined that it completely shatters reality as we know it? Welcome to the highly anticipated, severely dangerous number 2 spot on our explosive countdown, where we are desperately trying to unravel the mind-boggling, deeply secretive, and utterly devastating physical evolution of Kim Seok-jin, the eldest brother of BTS, whose journey from a soft, oversized sweater-wearing prince into an unapologetic military-grade powerhouse is an absolute masterclass in silent dedication, breathtaking maturity, and sheer unadulterated visual supremacy. If we take a long, nostalgic walk down memory lane to the early, chaotic debut days of 2013 and 2014, Jin was primarily recognized and universally revered for two very specific, highly publicized attributes: his breathtaking, actor-like visuals that instantly went viral every single time he simply stepped out of a vehicle, earning him the legendary car door guy moniker, and his incredibly wide, famously Dorito-shaped shoulders that instantly became the stuff of legendary, awe-inspiring fandom folklore. For years and years, Jin carefully and strategically cultivated a deeply comforting, almost aristocratic aesthetic. He was the undisputed king of luxurious silk pajamas, impeccably tailored pink suits, and oversized cozy hoodies, effectively hiding his physique behind a charming veil of endearing dad jokes, aggressive flying kisses, and those legendary chaotic Eat Jin live broadcasts that completely convinced the entire world he was simply enjoying the endless culinary delights of life without a single care for grueling gym sessions, heavy lifting, or intense abdominal workouts. He famously and quite hilariously rejected the intense, sweat-drenched muscle-building obsession of the younger members, constantly complaining in front of the cameras about how heavy the weights were, and dramatically whining that lifting dumbbells was actively ruining his delicate, carefully maintained, worldwide handsome aura. Because of this masterfully crafted, deeply lovable, and highly entertaining persona, the global fandom was completely, blissfully unaware of the absolute monster that was quietly, meticulously being built beneath those expensive, custom-fitted designer fabrics. The first real, terrifying cracks in his soft, approachable facade began to slowly appear during the explosive, intensely demanding fake love and blood, sweat, and tears eras, where the deeply intricate choreography demanded an unprecedented level of sheer, aggressive physical exertion, forcing the eldest member to push his body to its absolute breaking limits just to keep pace with the ferocious main dancers of the group. Fans started to notice, with bated breath, widening eyes, and rapidly beating hearts, that whenever Jin executed a sharp, aggressive turn or a powerful, gravity-defying leap, the hem of his meticulously tailored, sweat-drenched shirts would inevitably, gloriously ride up, granting us agonizingly brief, tantalizing flashes of a deeply toned, undeniably solid core that completely and utterly contradicted his easygoing, food-loving image. And who could possibly erase the absolute, unadulterated chaos of those legendary Run BTS episodes, specifically the infamous water park, swimming pool, and flying yoga challenges, where the sheer, unapologetically clinging nature of wet or tightly fitted athletic clothing betrayed his absolute deepest secret, revealing a torso that was remarkably solid, an incredibly snatched waist that perfectly accentuated those terrifyingly wide 60-centimeter shoulders, and the unmistakable, deeply shadowed ridges of a rock-hard six-pack that sent the entire fandom into a frantic, hyperventilating tailspin of pure disbelief. But the true, undeniable turning point, the monumental era that completely obliterated our collective sanity and fundamentally rewired our entire understanding of Kim Sok-jin's physical lethality, occurred when he proudly, bravely stepped forward as the very first member of BTS to enlist in the South Korean military. When he joined the notoriously rigorous, deeply demanding 5th Infantry Division and quickly, astonishingly rose through the ranks to become a feared, highly respected special class warrior and an elite assistant drill instructor, the soft, pampered prince image was completely, violently shattered, replaced by an awe-inspiring, deeply intimidating, and heavily muscled military titan. The grueling, bone-chilling winter marches, carrying heavy tactical gear up unforgiving mountains, and the relentless, physically punishing demands of leading young recruits through hellish, agonizing training completely transformed his already impressive physique into a literal, unstoppable weapon of mass destruction. We were blessed with rare, highly circulated, and incredibly devastating glimpses of Sergeant Kim Sok-jin in his impeccably fitted military uniform, his chest noticeably terrifyingly broader, his posture radiating a terrifying authoritative alpha energy, and a core so incredibly thick and powerful that it genuinely looked capable of withstanding heavy artillery fire. The man who used to playfully joke about his lack of physical stamina had essentially forged himself into an absolute machine, a towering, fiercely disciplined commander whose physical prowess now miraculously matched his untouchable, god-tier visuals. When he finally triumphantly returned to the civilian world, completing his mandatory service and immediately diving headfirst into his historic, mind-blowing post-enlistment schedule, which included hugging an astonishing 1,000 emotional fans and proudly carrying the Olympic torch through the historic streets of Paris, the sheer, unapologetic confidence he exuded was absolutely, undeniably paralyzing. In recent appearances, magazine covers, and subtle behind-the-scenes dance practices, the way his shirts drape tightly over his heavily bulked-up frame, the way his core tightens and flexes with an effortless, breathtakingly mature grace proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that his six-pack is no longer a fleeting, accidental occurrence, but a permanent, deeply carved monument to his ironclad discipline and his quiet, unyielding determination to be the absolute best in every single aspect of his life. Jin's physique is the ultimate mind-bending paradox that defies all logical explanation. He is a man possessing the delicate, flawlessly sculpted face of a romantic drama protagonist, attached to the impossibly broad, ruthlessly chiseled body of a legendary Greek war god, creating a visual whiplash that is genuinely medically fatal to the human cardiovascular system. His physical journey is a profoundly inspiring, deeply emotional testament to his silent resilience and unwavering work ethic. While the entire world continuously praised his beautiful face, he quietly, tirelessly, and relentlessly built a body of pure granite in the shadows, proving once and for all that the eldest Hayoung of BTS is just as dangerous, just as physically devastating, and just as capable of breaking the internet as the young muscle bunnies he helped raise. So, as you desperately try to calm your violently racing heart, frantically grasping for the nearest oxygen tank, and attempting to somehow process the sheer, suffocating, and thoroughly lethal magnitude of Kim Sok-jin's broad-shouldered, rock-solid supremacy at number 2, you absolutely, positively must brace yourself for the ultimate world-ending finale. Because if the worldwide handsome god of BTS has completely decimated your sanity and left you utterly defenseless on the floor, what kind of unfathomable, civilization-destroying, and unapologetically feral physical perfection is patiently? Number 1. Jungkook, the ultimate muscle bunny, a god-tier core of absolute domination. Who else could possibly claim the undisputed heavyweight championship throne of this utterly devastating countdown other than the Golden Maknae himself, the man who literally sent global fashion websites crashing into oblivion and single-handedly redefined the very concept of a viral internet meltdown? Welcome to the grand, earth-shattering finale at number 1, where we are absolutely surrendering our collective sanity to the terrifying, mesmerizing, and completely unparalleled physical supremacy of Jungkook, a global pop icon whose breathtaking evolution from a shy, doe-eyed 15-year-old boy into a heavily tattooed, unapologetically feral, and fiercely sculpted god of the stage is quite frankly the most legendary glow-up in the history of the music industry. If we rewind the sacred, deeply nostalgic timeline all the way back to the chaotic, heavily eyeliner debut era of 2013, Jungkook was the universally adored, incredibly precious baby brother of the group, a teenager so painfully shy that he would wait for the older members to fall completely asleep before daring to take a shower, possessing a slender, boyish frame that made millions of armies instinctively want to protect him at absolutely all costs. But even in those early, innocent days, there were terrifying, prophetic signs of the absolute monster he was destined to become. The older members frequently and somewhat nervously joked about Jungkook's terrifying natural genetics, his freakish athletic prowess, and his growing, insatiable obsession with working out, constantly teasing him as the muscle pig who was secretly plotting to physically overpower them all. Fast forward just a few short years, and those hilarious, lighthearted jokes transformed into a terrifying, high-definition reality as Jungkook hit puberty like an absolute, unstoppable freight train and decided to permanently move his primary residence to the heavily guarded HYB gym. The monumental shift from boy to man was not just gradual, it was an aggressive, relentless pursuit of sheer physical perfection, heavily fueled by his deep, burning passion for intense combat sports, grueling, sweat-drenched boxing sessions, and heavy weightlifting routines that systematically replaced every single ounce of his teenage softness with layers of dense, impenetrable, and deeply carved muscle. We watched in absolute awe as his diet shifted to intense, protein-heavy meals, constantly grilling meat and rigorously monitoring his fitness, effectively building a physique that was practically superhuman. The very first time the global public truly understood the sheer, catastrophic magnitude of Jungkook's physical evolution was during the legendary, heavily teased fake love era, an era that will forever be permanently burned into the collective retinas of the entire world as an absolute cultural reset. Do you remember exactly where you were? Do you remember if you were even breathing when BTS took the massive stage at the Billboard Music Awards, the camera zoomed in suffocatingly tight, and Jungkook executed that now iconic, aggressively deliberate shirt lift, completely exposing a rock-hard, impossibly defined, deeply shadowed set of abdominal muscles to millions of screaming, hyperventilating viewers across the globe? That single devastating fraction of a second was a historic television moment that literally caused a measurable spike in global heart rates, permanently cementing his undeniable status not just as a fiercely talented main vocalist, but as a top-tier, undisputed visual powerhouse who knew exactly how to wield his lethal physique to completely paralyze an audience. And then came the agonizingly powerful Map of the Soul On virtual concert, where his jaw-dropping solo performance of My Time completely shattered the internet. Dressed in an aggressive, tightly fitted leather outfit with his hair slicked back, every single fluid, intensely sensual movement he made highlighted a core so fiercely developed it looked like it was carved from solid marble, leaving fans gasping for air in their living rooms. But Jungkook, being the absolute, unwavering perfectionist that he is, refused to simply stop there. He pushed his physical limits even further, transforming his magnificent body into a literal, heavily armored canvas of deeply personal, profound art. His entire right arm became completely covered in an intricate, mesmerizing sleeve of tattoos, which eventually spread to his shoulder and chest, perfectly and dangerously contrasting with his insanely broad, thick chest, his edgy lip and eyebrow piercings, and the incredibly tight, heavily defined core that he frequently, almost maliciously flaunted during his completely unhinged, multi-hour late-night Weverse live streams. Who could possibly forget those chaotic broadcasts where he would casually exercise at 3 in the morning, aggressively punch heavy boxing bags until his knuckles were red, and sweat profusely in front of tens of millions of people who were all simultaneously losing their absolute minds, watching his abdominal muscles flex and ripple with every powerful strike? The true, unquestionable coronation of his physical supremacy, the monumental era that officially solidified his untouchable place at the absolute zenith of this countdown, was his mind-blowing ascension as the global ambassador for Calvin Klein, and the unprecedented release of his critically acclaimed, record-breaking solo album, Golden. When those infamous high-definition Calvin Klein campaign photos and cinematic videos violently dropped onto the internet, projecting his towering half-naked figure onto massive billboards in Times Square and across major global cities, showing a heavily tattooed, fiercely confident Jungkook wearing absolutely nothing but his unbuttoned denim jacket and his absolutely iconic underwear, the sheer, unadulterated chaos was unprecedented in the history of pop culture. International websites instantly crashed under the sheer volume of frantic traffic. Designer clothing lines sold out in a matter of seconds. Stock prices surged uncontrollably, and armies worldwide were literally forced to reconsider their entire existence as they stared deeply into the terrifying abyss of his flawless, heavily contoured six-pack and that dangerously alluring, piercing alpha gaze. He had completely and utterly shed the cute, innocent Maknae image forever, emerging as a heavily armed, unapologetically sexy pop titan that radiated a raw, feral, masculine energy that completely dominated the global cultural zeitgeist. And if the agonizingly beautiful photo shoot campaigns weren't lethal enough, his live, breathless performances for Seven and Standing Next to You were absolute, unmitigated bloodbaths. Dressed in sleek, sharply tailored designer suits and dangerously tight, sweat-drenched silk shirts, every single explosive Michael Jackson-esque body roll, every sharp, aggressive hip thrust, and every deep, breathtaking contemporary isolation pushed the delicate fabric of his clothing to the absolute breaking point, revealing a core so incredibly solid, so perfectly and symmetrically maintained that it completely defied all laws of human anatomy, biology, and physics. His six-pack is an awe-inspiring, tangible testament to his relentless, borderline insane work ethic, a breathtaking physical manifestation of a man who demands absolute, unwavering perfection from himself in every single discipline he tackles, whether it is hitting impossible high notes that shatter glass, directing intricate, deeply emotional music videos, dominating the boxing ring with the agility of a professional fighter, or carving a physique that belongs perfectly displayed in a heavily guarded museum of classical antiquities.